I'm ready. Can you hear me okay?
Awesome. The recording's already started, so you're good to go.
Awesome. How is my audio? Is this all right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, great. Excellent. I see some thumbs up in there. You can tell I'm kind of doing this from my car, so hope you guys don't mind. But yeah, this is great. Door knocking is one of those topics that is very dear to me because this is door knocking is really how I believe I launched my business forward. Um, to give you a little bit of background, I've been a realtor for 12 years, 11, 12, I think 12 years. At some point, you don't really count a few years, but I started out in new construction, did that for about a year, and then I went and I joined a team for about 3 years. And then about year four, that's when I joined Keller Williams and started doing things completely on my own. And that's also a scary jump. Whether you do that right out the gate or whether you do that down the road, that's a scary thing. So kudos to everyone who has made that jump, whether you are uh, just preparing, just got your license, or you are on a team, or you're doing it on your own. All of it is respectable. So, congratulations on all that. Zoom is a little bit different platform than I have taught this class before. So, I welcome questions. Feel free to interrupt and let me know because it's difficult to see like who might be who has questions or who doesn't. So, if something comes up, please just don't be shy, interrupt and say something. And I'd be happy to, or if you just have a comment, something that you want to share. Okay. Um, I want to make this valuable and also value your guys' time. So I want to make sure that we're going through just the high level items, making sure that we're hitting everything that's important. And then I will leave. If you haven't asked your questions during the time that I kind of go on, I'll leave some time at the end, and we'll see if we end early or not, depending on what questions you guys have. So we'll do a little bit more Q&A towards the end as well if I didn't answer your question during the presentation. Any questions up front? I'll give the momentary awkward Zoom silence and assume that that means none. Okay, I will move forward. So, door knocking, there's a few things, and I'll share on my own experience with door knocking, and then that way you guys know that this is something that I've put in practice in my own business. So again, like I said, when I was launching things forward on my own, I had some big goals, and I knew at the time that I was doing that, I was probably closing right around, I think the year before was probably about 23 homes. My goal, I needed to almost double that. Um, so I needed to figure out different pillars, and this is one of the things that you hopefully are learning in Ignite or elsewhere. But if you've already learned it, just a quick recap. It is my belief that you need to have 2 to 3 pillars of sources for your business where you're going to get your closings, get your business, and where where you how you're going to hit your goals. So essentially you have your main goal. Usually it's a number of transactions or a dollar amount or something numerical so that you know whether you're going to hit it or not. And then you have your 3 pillars. At this time, my main pillar was number one, my SOI or sphere of influence. Number two was I did social media. I didn't do any of the paid stuff. I was just very active and did things on social media there. And then the third one was door knocking. And door knocking for me during that time, as you know, for my business from the year before, sphere of influence was the most important, but I needed to supplement. So if you're not adding people to your database or actively bringing new business in, then your business likely will stay stagnant or probably decrease from year over year. So door knocking was one where my main focus, I started hitting it hard in and this is just kind of give you some context, and then I will go through my whole system for you guys. I started hitting it hard in I think February, beginning of February. Normally we have, or ideally you have your plan together in the fall the year before. So November, October, you're putting your plan together for the year. But I wasn't with Keller Williams at the time, so I hadn't learned that yet. So January for me, that's when I was putting my plan together and then I put it in action in February. Anyways, what that meant for me was I door knocked pretty actively for 6 months to hit my goals for the year. And during that 6 months, and it's important now, part of this, I'll tell you, you want to track your numbers. And this is how I was able to look back and see how all this went. So for 6 months, I door knocked probably on average an hour a day. Um, I'm not trying to say this is outlandish because I want everyone to know how real and how possible this is for you. So you don't have to go out and door knock 6, 7, 8 hours every single day, although you can. I'm just telling you that this is my experience based off of an average of an hour a day, 5 days a week. I often went out on Saturdays because I was trying to find people at home. And most of the time, one of the most common questions I get when I talk about door knocking is what's the best time to door knock? The answer to that is whenever you're going to go. So it's really simple to really strategize and say, all right, I'm going to go at this time. But um, if everything worked out perfectly, then yes, the better time to go is between 4 and 7 p.m. at night. However, my data was usually between 9 and 12 in the morning. The reason I share that is because you can still get results even if it's not the optimal time. And the reason why I couldn't commit to the 4 to 7 was because I have a family and all of that. But that's usually when I have appointments, and that's when I have time to be able to go show homes or to put my appointments together with other people, and those would always take precedence. And if that takes precedence, it's really tempting to do that instead of your door knocking in order to get new business. So again, go when you will actually go, um, whenever you're going to actually do it. So for me, the best time was in the morning. That was easier to control. Okay. So did that for about 6 months. And some days I did maybe 2 or 3 hours a day, and then I might miss a day, that sort of thing. So that's why it averaged out to about 5 hours a week, 1 hour a day, uh, and for about 6 months. In that activity, it brought me 10 new closings that year, out of door knocking. And at the time, that was an average commission of about $9,000. So would that be about $90,000 in commission that came from the door knocking activity? I share all that just so that you guys can put a plan together. Once you know the numbers, then you can just put together to base it off of your own goal. Um, right now, the goal or the commission amount, the average commission is higher. So maybe you don't have to do 10 closings in order to hit that same goal, or maybe your goal is higher. Um, but that's part of the strategy is to figure out what your goal is. So number one, what your goal is, and then put the numbers and the system together to meet that goal in that specific pillar. Because again, door knocking might not be your number one, but it could be. So it just depends. If your goal is $300,000 in the year, you could do that all in just door knocking. You just have to put together the plan and put the amount of time into it. Okay, so um, a few other statistics just to share that you guys can write down that these are the numbers that worked for me. So I found that um, every every 3 doors that I knocked, I would usually talk to one person. Okay, so that's one person for every 3 doors. And I found that usually I could talk to about 10 people an hour. So if my goal was to get 20 contacts that day, then I would need to schedule out 2 hours of door knocking. Um, and that would usually mean that I'm hitting 60 doors, right? In order to talk to that many people. Hopefully I threw in that math correctly. But um, okay, so those are some of the statistics, and I will circle back on that when I talk about tracking just for your own benefit as well. Okay. All right. So when you go into door knocking, you first of all need to know what location. I found out that for me, it was best to door knock around a listing that I have. Um, because door knocking is the excuse to talk to people for about your listing. If you don't have a listing at all, then you can borrow a listing for someone from someone else. Get permission from someone in the office and say, "Hey, I would like to door knock and advertise your listing or talk about your listing." For me, there were two scripts that worked the best around door knocking as far as a message or a goal or a purpose that I had. I usually wouldn't just go up to the door and say, "Hey, would you like to sell your house?" Next, "Hey, would you like to sell your house?" Although that is a purpose, that wasn't the approach that I took. I took one of two. The first one was whether I was inviting someone to an open house. So usually that meant that I had an open house coming up that weekend and I was door knocking and I'll share with you my script in just a second. But the purpose was I'm going to invite them to the open house. The second purpose was after I got the home under contract or after I got it sold, then that would be the second purpose was to basically announce the sale. And here's the two scripts. First, the script for the open house. Um, if I was going to invite someone, so I'd come up to the door, I'd knock on the door, and I'd say, "Hey, hi, I'm Tyler with Keller Williams. Just want to let you know that we've got an open house coming up on a house right around the corner, and I just wanted to invite you." Usually I printed off just like really small open house flyers and I would give that to them. So automatically up front, I'm trying to say, "Hey, this is an invitation. I have the details right here, and I would love to give them to you." What that does, I found, is kind of breaks down the walls because most of the time people are a little bit skeptical of, who's knocking on the door and why. Um, which brings up attire. I'm going to come back to my script and I'll tell you this as well. You don't want to appear threatening. There are some people that have naturally scarier looks than others, and other people that are just a ray of sunshine the first time you see them. So first of all, know who you are, and then just dress appropriately. Sometimes you might have to overdress to overcompensate. Maybe you have a naturally scary look. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that's all right. So maybe you need to dress up in a suit and a tie. I don't know that I have a really scary look because I do try to be light and I smile with people at the door, but I would make sure I would commonly wear at least a button-up shirt, a tie, and in the beginning I would wear a suit jacket. But that was just my regular attire. That was a little bit more my style. I wanted to appear professional and also get rid of any insecurities that people might have by opening the door and thinking that maybe I'm a summer salesman or something like that. I'm different and hopefully to help break down the walls. Okay, so all right, let's go back to the script, the open house script. All right. So knock on the door. "Hey, I'm Tyler with Keller Williams. Just want to let you know that that I've got an open house on the house that I have for sale right around the corner, and wanted to invite you." I would give them the little flyer and then from there I'd say, "Well, just wondering if you know of any neighbors that it's a good time to choose your neighbor. Is there any neighbors that you would like to invite or any friends or family that you would like to come and live near you?" Most of the time the answer is no. Um, and that's okay. And then you'd say, "Well, once I have that home sold, we will have leftover buyers because I'm going to be bringing in buyers for that home. Do you know any neighbors that are thinking about selling?" Um, and again, most of the time the answer is no, and that's okay. Um, and then you say, "Well, great. We'd love to see you there. If you'd like to come by, then, here's the address, blah, blah, blah." So that's the basic script. It's really simple. I don't try to take a lot of time for two reasons. One, because I'm trying to be respectful of them. You're interrupting them in their time. And then two, so that I can get to the next door. It's not just about how many doors you can knock, but it is about finding that right person. You got to get through a lot of no's to find the one that is actually interested. Um, okay, so that was the open house script. The next one was when I have when the home is under contract or when it sells. Both of them, I use the same script. Um, and it's very similar to the other one, but basically just says, knock, knock. Hi, I'm Tyler with Keller Williams. Just want to let you know that we just sold your neighbor's house around the corner, and we've got a few buyers that couldn't buy that one that are still looking in your neighborhood. They love your neighborhood. Do you know anyone else in the neighborhood that might be thinking about selling their home?
Can I ask a
Uh,
question
yes,
on
thank
that?
you for your
Uh,
interruption, please.
Thanks. When you go back the second time, like the house might be under contract or sold, do you have any flyers on that to show what the sold price is, or do you reveal that if they ask you that? Like,
Um,
what did it sell for? I know it's a non-disclosure statement. Do you actually give that information out to them?
it's a good question. And it depends. So the first one is if they ask me if it's under contract and it hasn't closed yet, then the answer is well, it's not closed. It's under contract, it's in the process of selling. We already have the buyer. It's been selected and they're committed to them. Um, and I can't disclose it yet without the neighbor's permission. But if you would like, I'd be happy to come back and let you know after it's closed. Is that something you would prefer?
So
Uh,
it's totally fine to reveal that after the closing to tell the neighbor or whoever you're, door knocking on what the house sold for then.
sure. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
because
didn't know if there was, I just wasn't sure on that. Like, is that legal? Do we have to? I don't know why it wouldn't be,
you're
but
using your license to unless you have specific instructions from your previous client not to, you're using your
okay.
license to educate and share with others. And
Okay.
again, I felt comfortable. It is a one-on-one. I never had to really get into it and find like the fine detail. Maybe there's something out there, but when it's one-on-one, I've never had that issue. I would be a little bit more cautious doing that on a big broadcast to social media. Uh,
Okay.
just yeah, a little bit more cautious. But if they're already a client, they're in your database, then yeah, I would feel comfortable sharing that.
Okay. So obviously not everyone's going to ask. If they ask the question, it's totally fine to answer them after closing. And in my neighborhood, there's been a couple homes that have sold. So just randomly talking, people have said, I wonder what that sold for. So if I was interacting with them, I could say, yeah, that got 40,000 over the asking price. It sold for, 825,000 or whatever it was.
Yep. Yeah.
It's a great time, so when I've got some farming on that I just kind of wanted to figure out how to have some of those conversations because I have a unique neighborhood that's um, old and tearing down and new builds. So it's all over the place in my neighborhood.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay,
Absolutely.
thanks.
Good question. Um, okay. So, uh, let's just to recap the script and let's go back to the beginning on that one. So, Um, knock, knock. Hey, it's Tyler with Keller Williams. Just want to let you know that we sold your neighbor's house around the corner, and we've got some leftover buyers that love your neighborhood that are still looking for a house here. Do you know of any neighbors that are looking to sell their house or thinking about it? Um, so pause for a second. The reason why I'm asking for neighbors is because, again, it's about breaking down that wall. I'm not here to sell them something. I'm not here to interrogate them. Just would you like to be helpful and help your neighbor out? Maybe they're looking for a buyer. Most of the time, when you ask for a neighbor, and if you ask about them, almost 8 or 9 times out of 10, they would say, "Hey, I'm actually thinking about it." They would volunteer themselves. So at that point, that's when you can say, "Oh, great," and then you just switch and you start talking to them about their home, which I'll go into a little bit more detail in just a second. Um, but most of the time they will say, no, I don't know any neighbors. And then, so going back to the script, no, I don't know any neighbors. Okay. Well, great. Is it something that, if you had a good offer on your home, would you think about it? Would you consider selling? So one, you're asking about a neighbor, which gives them the opportunity to raise their hand and say, no, I'm thinking about it. But if they don't, then you could be a little bit more upfront, or more intentional towards them and say, if you got a good offer on your home, would you consider selling? And then that lets them know that, you know, maybe they're not thinking about it, and that's fine. Then the last thing, if you don't feel like you've overstayed your welcome on the front porch, and again, this is only like 30 seconds, 45 seconds, that you're there talking to them at this point. If you're not feeling like they're just like feeling like you're an annoyance and they just want to get you out of here, then I usually would ask them, say, hey, well, I'm a neighborhood realtor. I'm a neighborhood expert. What I do for people that are interested is just keep them up to date on their home values and what's going on in the neighborhood. Is that something that you would like to be a part of? I might throw in there that, you know, I invite these people to my my events and a few things that I do for people that are in my inner circle as well. Is that something you would be interested in? If they say yes, then I say, all right, great. What's your name? And then I pause. I purposely pause. What's your name? I write down their name. What's your phone number and email? Ask both of them at the same time, because if you ask one, what's your phone number? Then when you ask for the email, they say, oh, you've got my email, my phone number, that's fine, or vice versa. If you ask both at the same time, then your odds of getting both will increase. If they say no, that they don't want to be a part of it, then you just say, great, awesome, have a nice day, and you just move on. If they do want to be a part of the contact, your database, then you already have their address, because you're there at their house. You just write down their house number and you already know what street you're on, and there you've got it. So then you have a full contact right there to add to your database. Okay, so that is kind of more the strategy, or what happens when they say no a few times, that they're not interested. If they say yes, then here's a few things that I've learned that some people have said. If they're like, yeah, I'm interested, and yeah, I'm thinking about selling, then what I usually my goal right there is just collect a little bit of data and then move on. It's to set an appointment for me to come back. Right then, they're not ready to make decisions. I surprise them at the door, and they're not ready to make decisions and choose me to be their realtor. Uh, I'm sure there's some people you could find out there that would be willing to do that. However, my approach was not that. So my goal was to set an appointment. First, I was just trying to get information, basically all the info that I would need to do a home valuation for them. I would say, okay, great. I'd be happy to do some homework on your house and to come back and we can talk about what a price strategy would be for you and get a value. So you're asking, how many total bedrooms and bathrooms are in the home? If the basement is finished, um, if you can't tell from just like in the neighborhood or just looking over the fence, like from the street, if you can't tell if they have a detached garage or something unique like that, um, usually you can see past like over their shoulder and get somewhat of an idea. If you can see their kitchen, usually their kitchen is a good idea of whether the house is updated or not. It's not always a guarantee, but the kitchen is a big portion of the update. So if you see an updated kitchen, then you have an idea that, okay, odds are the rest of the house is probably pretty well kept. But if it's just destroyed from your view to the kitchen or your view to that front room, then odds are the house needs updating. So you just kind of take a mental note. And sometimes I would have my own system of like, a quality is a 1 to 5 type thing. And then just make a mental note and write that down as a note in there as well too, as you're doing your research. So basically, if I missed anything in there, sometimes I ask them, what's your overall square footage? Did you add on to the house at all? Some things that might not be showing up on county records. So again, you're not trying to sit there for another 10 minutes on their doorstep. It is, okay, great. Let me ask you some details, and then you ask them, when is a good time for you? And let's say you're clearly talking to the woman of the house or the man of the house. When is a good time for you and any other decision makers, whether that be a spouse or someone else, uh, could be home? We can talk about it all together and see if you guys have questions after I discuss this. And that's really important because what I have found is afterwards, after you set the appointment and you come back, a lot of times those appointments that they fall through happens because you set the appointment with one of the, whether the husband or the wife, and then the other one says, no, I don't want to meet. Or they can't meet at a certain time. And but it is hard to get full decisions being made at that appointment if both of them are not there. If it's a, a two adult household type situation. So the goal is, of course, to set the appointment to come back. I have been invited into the house right then and say, hey, why don't you come in and take a look? And you can give me an idea on the value. Uh, Almost always, almost every single time, with the exception of maybe one, those have been a waste of time. You get stuck in the house for 30 to 45 minutes going through chatting. Usually the people that invite you in are chatters themselves. They like human interaction and they would love to chat and frankly waste your time, your precious door knocking hours. And they're usually not that serious either. They are looking for something, just a quick, hey, I just want some free information right now. If you can't give it to me now, then I'm not really interested. And those are not really the people you want to be spending time on anyways. So, um, just a few tips, lessons learned from myself. If you do get invited in, of course, if they're insistent, sometimes even though I don't want to go in, I might say, yes, I'm okay. If they're insistent, I just try not to be rude either. But I am trying to get back on the street and knocking doors as quick as possible because that time frame period is it's valuable. If you miss it, then odds are you're not going to make it up later in the day or the next day. It's much harder to do that. Okay. Let me pause. Do you guys have any questions about anything so far?
I do again.
Okay.
I'll be the chatty one in there.
That's all right.
So when you are going to the door and all that, do you bring, I mean, obviously your business card, do you bring any information to hand them? Let's say they don't have the time, they're not home. They would say, I would like to talk, but I've got to go. Give me your card, give me something. What kind of information do you carry with you? I guess is what I'm asking.
Okay, good question. So, I stopped carrying business cards just altogether on purpose, or I would hide them away in my car. I would not have them on my person for a reason. The reason why is, if people say, all right, why don't you leave me your business card? And that way I have your info. They will never reach out to you. Sorry, very rarely, right? How many times do we do this ourselves? We're like, okay, great. We got their info. I was nice. I was respectful. Throw it in the garbage after they leave. Um, I say, oh, I don't have my card on me right now. Why don't let me write down your info and I'll shoot you a text with my information, or I'll send you an email, or whatever you want to do. Um, that way you gather their info and the ball is in your court. You have control. As soon as you do not collect their info, they have control. And again, 9 times out of 10, it's going in the garbage. Okay, so that's business card. Sometimes I will still carry business cards and then just slip it in the door. Or if it's someone that I've already gathered their information, then they will have earned a business card from me. But again, I'm not relying on the business card. It is just, off on the off chance they want to reach out to me, here it is, but I'm not putting a lot of weight to it. You bring up a good question as far as other handouts. And here's a little side spiel that I have learned. This is, again, my personality. I have tended to be a little bit of a perfectionist when it comes to this. I've had to try to unlearn this and to weed that out of myself a little bit, because for any other perfectionists on the call, you can probably relate that a simple task can take hours to days to complete. And that task is not crucial to getting the results. Usually it can be an avoidance technique if you're really looking deep into yourself, from doing the hard thing, which is actually getting out there and talking to people. So what I did instead is I gave myself 5 minutes. Maybe I was generous and said, all right, 10 minutes to put together a flyer, and then I'm going to print it and get out the door. So I put a time limit on myself. The reason I share this is my flyer, my open house flyer, it was black and white. It just said, you're invited, open house, and it had all the basic details: house address, time, date, and then probably, of course, logo, brokerage info, and then my contact info on there as well. That I share that because it is an ugly, ugly flyer. But I will never change it, because that is a symbol to me of things work if you just do the right activities. If you just do the things that, if you talk to people, that's the important part. The flyer itself is not the important one. It is talking to people and getting face to face. So that again, it's just a reminder to me that things do not need to be perfect in order to get 10 extra closings from this activity. If you spend a lot of time doing flyers or trying to make everything else perfect, then it's not worth it. I did not have a flyer for my second script, which was the sold script. It was just, my goal was just to set an appointment and get their information. That was it. I didn't want to feel like I had to leave anything. However, if I did want to spend the time, if you're one of the people that can get it done quick and just have it, again, I'm just stressing that's not the important part. It is talking to the person. Any of this can always be leveled up and added onto, and you can do some really cool things. You can do neighborhood statistics. You can do a little printout of education, things like that. Yes, I think if I actually took the time and it didn't take away from door knocking, those are things that are smart things to do. I just knew myself, my own personality. So that's why I did it. You guys could do that. But again, the important thing is being face to face and talking to them. So
Yeah, that's kind of more my personality. I feel like it's something in my hands. Like I don't just stand there and look for my own personal thing of education more than for me just saying, hey, this is what's happening in our neighborhoods, our community, where I'm actually farming some of the door knocking that I've already put together, just kind of trying to, I guess, break the ice, and because it is in my neighborhood. So I'm hoping that that might at least give the butterflies, get a groove going where I feel confident going to the door. So
yep.
that's where I'm hoping it will be. Yeah. So
And good for you. I think whatever it takes, I would just put a limit to it, a time limit. And you will be surprised at, people are not expecting perfection or expecting, that's not why they would hire you. If you were door knocking multi-million-dollar homes, you might need to have a different approach. They will care a little bit more about the appearance. But that was not my strategy. My strategy as far as location was move up neighborhoods. I wanted a neighborhood that people frequently moved into, and it was not their forever home. It was a home they moved into and they would stay there for 5 years, maybe max, and they're ready to move out, either because the house turns out to be too small, or because they need another upgrade or something, right? So again, that's picking your location. And if you happen to have and if you are choosing a location or a listing, that's my style. I didn't have as much success when I tried on those higher end homes, just because they stay there longer. In my experience, you want to find something that has a good turnover in the neighborhood. Okay. Good question. And any others before we move on?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So when just now you mentioned that if someone invited you, but you say it's a waste time to go inside their house. So how do you refuse? Refuse them to go inside their house. So
Yeah.
we can save the time to do the door locking.
Good question. I would usually just say, hey, I've got an appointment coming up. I would love to come in, but why don't we save that for when I come back? I have an appointment and I'm on a schedule right now, and I value your time and mine, and I will be better prepared when I come back. Now that I have this info, I'm going to do some research and we can go through.
Okay, so what info do you gather? correct from the door knocking? What info do you ask?
Yeah, so after I have their contact info, I want to make sure that I have basic data to do a home valuation, which is bedrooms, bathrooms, if the basement's finished, if the whole home is finished. Usually I can tell if it's a 2-car, 3-car garage. They usually don't know square footage, but I sometimes I ask them, hey, do you have an idea what your square footage is? A lot of times they don't know and they're usually off, but that usually tells me if they think your house is too big or if it's bigger than what is showing on county records. But usually that question will bring up if they made any additions or things like that. Yeah, so bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, and garage acreage is right there. Like a lot of the stuff you can find on county records. It's just trying to see if they've done anything unique to the house. Sometimes if I can't tell from looking over their shoulder what the condition is, I might say on a scale of 1 to 3, what your condition is. 1 is everything that needs updating. 2 is everything is original but not updated. However, it's livable. And 3 is we've done a full remodel on the house, or you could do that in scale of 1 to 5, that sort of thing. That can give you an idea as you're looking at comparable properties as far as a home valuation.
Okay, a lot of information from that.
Yeah. But again, that only takes a minute, 90 seconds to go through all of that on the doorstep. Any other questions so far?
Hey, Tyler, it's Marcel.
Hey, Marcel.
Hey, so yeah, just we have that software you talked about, like finding homes that people are not going to be in very long. We kind of call those move up buyers. We have some software that allows us to get in there and search those.
Awesome.
So,
You want to talk about that real quick?
yeah, so it's where you can go in and you can be very specific on zip code, county, city, whatever, and then you can be specific on square footage you're looking for, bedrooms. Obviously, you're going to have a lot of like maybe townhomes that are going to be in that area where people get into a townhome to get into their home. They're going to outgrow it. They want to maybe get into a home with maybe less neighbors. So our software can be very detailed to find you a list to where you can go out and market those people and ask those questions.
That's perfect. And again, you can, if you don't remember any of that, or you just need to talk to Marcel about it, find him on the main floor of our office building in South Jordan.
Yeah, and I'll put my number in the chat, but I know we've sat down a few here. So Liz and I could definitely help out anyone who just wants to sit down and kind of learn the software.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Yep.
Other questions before moving forward? Okay. All right. So we have talked about location. We've talked about goal, what your goal is. We've talked about messaging, what you're going to say, what that script is. And we've also kind of talked about some handouts. What I want to share is you need to have their information to follow up and for tracking. And then I can talk about what that next meeting looks like. I'll just be really brief because that kind of talks about like a listing presentation. I won't go into all the details, but maybe just some quick high points on that. And then we'll open it up for more Q&A. So awesome. Thanks, Marcel, in the chat. So I want to share that basically, so for tracking, you want to make sure that you have enough data to know whether you're being effective or not. And what I did is a lot of times I had just a pen and a paper. So I went to Walmart, bought one of these. This is my actual one. I leave some things on here like this just as reminders that things don't have to be pretty. This was like 99 cents. You just buy it. And just write things down on here. So what I would look for, all right, just flip to a random page. What I would put up here at the top is I would put the date, information that I would want to know. So I'd put the date. This one happened to be Thursday, June 15th. And then I also put my time because I wanted to know at that time, I didn't have any data. I didn't have anyone telling me what's the best time or when to go. I wanted to see what was effective. So this one I went from 9:20 to 1:20 that day. And it's really small, but you can see DK, doors knocked, and then C for contact. I would usually put like appointment as well. Sometimes I would break out like appointment set and appointment held because sometimes that makes a difference. If you're looking for like I like to know, did I set a bunch of appointments, and then how many of those appointments that I set are turning into actual appointments held. So that data is helpful to know. And then I would usually put my location. For me, again, mine were I stuck to 2 different locations just because I kept getting listings there. I started with 2 listings in February. One happened to be in like Kearns area, and the other one happened to be in West Jordan. I didn't have any knowledge or data otherwise. I just went for it. And I kept getting new listings in those neighborhoods. So I kept door knocking again for open house and solds. And then it would just, I did try a few other neighborhoods in different areas, but because I got different listings in those ones, but I just found that those ones, they just kept bringing up new clients. So I stayed in those areas mainly. Again, tracking these numbers helps you know for the day, like how many contacts am I doing? How much time is being spent? How many people do I need? How many doors do I need to knock in order to talk to people? Once you have that info, then it's easier to figure out what I need to do to, or how much time spent to hit my goals. Okay. That's why at the very beginning I shared this is the data that I found in my own experience. You might find some people that are converting a little bit higher or maybe converting a little bit lower than me, but I think if you're brand new and you're just starting it out, then I would give yourself a little bit of grace in there. And also, if you haven't been doing a lot of door knocking, then maybe your goal, maybe you should double it. Like for example, I if you need to contact 10 people in order to like 10 people an hour, then maybe you need to double that to hit your goals. Maybe you have to do 2 hours a day to hit the same number of goals just for someone else until you find out what your own tracking is doing, as far as what results you're getting from the amount of people you talk to and so forth. I found that on average, this is rounding a little bit, but for every 100 people that I would talk to, I would close one, I would have one sale. And also, to be more detailed in those numbers, out of those 10 that I closed that year, so I'm just checking to see if that is okay, that was just coaching. I'm just making sure there wasn't something that I needed to do on that. Out of those 10 homes that I closed, there were 6 different clients. And let's see, 4 of them was a buy and a sell. So when you help them sell their house, usually they have to buy somewhere else. And so 4 of them were a buy and a sell. So that's 8 right there. And then the other 2, they moved out of state. So I just helped them sell their house. And then, of course I tried to get a referral fee on the back end. But that just, if you guys are a numbers person or analytic, then maybe that information will help you. Okay. So tracking your numbers, that'll help you get an idea for how you're going to hit your goal and how much time you need to spend door knocking and that sort of thing. Let's see. Trying to think if there's other things that I usually get questions about. Why don't we go ahead and open up for other questions, things that might have come up, and then maybe if there's nothing else, then we can start to wrap up.
I have another question. So you say you often in the Kern and the West Jordan, these 2 neighborhood. My question is, will you look at the same door again?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So people started to know me. And there were some people I knocked on their door over the period of 6 months. I probably knocked on their door maybe two or three times. And you just be friendly every time, and people respect you for working hard. People respect you for being someone who is out there doing what other people won't do. Which brings up the point. One of my best clients was someone that I found on a rainy day, and I was out there with an umbrella, and it was crappy weather. Um, and people automatically respect that. If you knock on your door and you're holding an umbrella, then you're doing something hard, right? That's the impression that you give someone when you are up at the door. And then, oh, and I did say I was going to go back to my appointment. So when you are at your appointment, then that is a selling point for you. Even if you haven't sold a lot of homes in the past, that becomes a selling point. No one's working harder than me. Or you could ask them, how many people have knocked on your door in the past year for real estate? Most people, I mean, they might say one or two or something like, but most people are going to say zero. Say, well, I'm doing this every day. I am a hard worker. And when I have something when I need to get a result, I'm going to do whatever it takes. So that could be your selling point if you don't have, hey, I sold this many homes last year, or I have this much experience, blah, blah, blah. People respect it when you are a hard worker. Um, since I'm on the topic of the appointment, I'll share just a few thoughts on that. So once I get the appointment, so when I'm knocking, get the appointment, I'll go back to the office. Let's say it's for a few days down the road or next week or whatever. I'll do my homework. I'll figure out a strategy for their price and valuation. And then you come back and you do your listing presentation. And there's a whole nother class and segment on listing presentation that we can that you guys will learn through, or maybe you already have. But in that appointment, I was surprised how many people would say yes and would sign a contract with me in that first appointment. I bring that up in case anyone else has any thoughts that, man, why would someone sign with me right away? Why would they do that? People do. And if you show them the value, then they'll do it. There's a few times that I called my wife on the way home, and I was almost like, I cannot believe I got a signature. This was maybe my first few. And then after that, I was like, you kind of start to get a little bit more confidence, and you start to expect it. Yeah, it's you go in there and you plan on getting a signature. And my goal was to get the signature even if we weren't going to list right away. Most of the time when you knock on their door, they're not ready to sell the next week, like get it on the market. Usually I found that it's like, all right, we are going to get your house ready, and it's going to take, maybe you're a month. I found that it was anywhere from a month to 2 months before they're ready to get their home on the market. So again, that's like 4 to 6 weeks. That's plenty of time, and it's a good use of your time door knocking, because you've got a new client, and sometimes a new buyer, because they need to sell their house, they need to buy something too. So the goal for me at that appointment was just to have them commit to me as the agent. I wasn't worried about when we were going to get their house up on the market. I let them say, hey, how much time do you need? And again, most of the time it was between 1 and 2 months.
So another question is, if you lock the same door, but you already collect their information before, so how can you start a conversation? Will you feel embarrassed?
I'm not sure that I understood your full question.
So my question is, you speak to the same people, then you already have their all information. So how can you start a conversation again?
How do you start? Oh, if you're saying if you're knocking on their door again the next time?
Yeah, and then how can you start that conversation anytime, any point?
Same thing. The same script. And then how would a homeowner in your neighborhood feel if you go and you say, hey, guess what? I sold another one. Oh, hey, I'm back. I just sold another house in your neighborhood. Then I'm clear, like at some point that becomes, if you want to turn this into a farm, again, that's another class, but if you want to turn it into a farm, this is a great way to do it. They see you often and they see you getting results. Hey, I sold another house. Do you know? I know you told me no last time. Just wondering if any new neighbors or anyone else you heard of. Because sometimes when you see homes sell, then you start to have conversations with other people. You just ask them the same thing and you do it with a smile. You say, "Hey, I'm back." Yeah, and they're friendly. People are nice. I have had people slam the door in my face and to get mad at me and everything, but that is literally probably only 3 to 5 out of 100. I can handle a handful out of 100 people. Everyone else is nice. It's pretty rare that you're going to find those people that make it awkward or uncomfortable.
So will you lock that door again if they make you uncomfortable? Will you make notes on which place you have locked? So, or which door you missed, like that.
Yeah. Yep. I even looked at different software. I tried to use that and it was a little bit more clunky than just honestly what worked best for me was this. I didn't always write down which houses I didn't talk to. But the ones that they slam the door in your face, you'll remember those. So you don't need to worry about that. Other than that, you just go and you knock on the same ones, whether you talk to them again. If they didn't answer last time, then you're hoping to catch them this time. And if you talk to them 2 or 3 times, then that's great. Then you're just establishing that relationship even more. If it's awkward for you, then usually that's you projecting it on them. Um, it's not awkward for them. If it feels awkward, it's usually with us. So just go in confident and be kind, respectful, and people receive you really well.
Okay.
Good questions.
Do you still knock on the do not soliciting signs
Yeah,
doors out there?
good question. So, as a blanket statement, as a blanket general, at the time I would say yes, I did. If they were creative and they could clearly they had a note or it was handwritten or you can tell that they intentionally put it up, then I will I won't knock it. I'll avoid that one. But most of the time, the no soliciting signs, they're still there from when they bought the house. They were not the ones that actually put it on their house. But that's kind of up to each of you. If you want to avoid those, then great. Again, I have had very few times where people are like, "Hey, it says no soliciting." And honestly, sometimes I wouldn't see it. And so like it's maybe off to the side or something like that. Just say, "Hey, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to bother you. I'll head out." So yeah, that's how I would handle that.
So I've got another question. Right in the very beginning, you mentioned you took 6 months to prepare. What exactly was that 6 months? What were you doing? Were you just doing farming neighborhoods or what exactly you did for that? Was it, you said or I guess you did door knock for 6 months, but you said in the fall you were preparing for it. What were your preparations and
okay.
what were you referring to about that?
Yes. So if you heard that it takes 6 months to prepare to door knock, then that's not what I meant to say. What I meant to say is in the fall, you're setting your goals and you're putting your business plan together for the next year. That's what I
That's
meant.
better. Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, what are you doing for 6 months? I thought you were maybe mapping out a whole name, okay.
No,
Good
no,
to
no,
know.
no. Yeah, just
Okay.
if you're that's all. Yeah, it was just you're putting your business plan together for the following year. Any more questions out there? Okay. I hope this was valuable for anyone that wants to do door knocking. It works. I believe in it. And And again, not all the results come right away. I do remember there is one that I knocked in March that I didn't help them buy and sell until October. And sometimes that happens. But most of them were they were pretty quick. So if you guys have other questions, you can find me in the office. Again, Tyler Demars. If you have other questions, or I mean, I'm happy to talk to you more about it. But yeah, I just want to see everyone successful in this, and let's all win together. So we'll just close this out, and
Thank you.
yeah, I think everyone else had
Thank
to
you.
kick
Thank
off.
you.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Tyler.
Good job, Tyler.
Thank you. Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you.